Hey, everybody out there in comic book land, it's Chuck Dixon back for another episode of What You Reading. I frequently asked question, Chuck, what are you reading when you're not writing? And I like to share that because people seem to enjoy that. And a lot of you seem to enjoy commenting on it here below the videos, exchanging conversations in a little community of like minded folks. First up is I swear, I promise, Cinebook does not send me these for free. I get nothing from Cinebook. I just read a lot of stuff they publish because they're publishing a lot of European comic albums in English for the first time with excellent production values and really good translations. Um, so this one is the 15th volume in the run of the Bluecoats. It's about a pair of Union soldiers during the American Civil War, Sergeant Bluch and Corporal Chesterfield, and their continuing adventures. And this one involves the Battle of Bull Run. And I always enjoy these. But this one I enjoy particularly. I think it's the best one in the series I've read so far, by far. It's really it's funny, it's exciting. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot of suspense in the story, and one of the reasons I think it works so well is the action is condensed to the afternoon of the battle at Manassas or the Battle of Bull Run, which is really the first set piece battle of the Civil War. It's the earliest fight in 1861, in the summer of 1861, and it's because of the time compression. The creators, Willie Lambeal and Raoul Clavin or Calvin, are, they have to come up with all these different layers of action, and the story moves very very briskly because it's told within a condensed period of time. The story takes place within just a few hours, and while it's not really a terribly accurate portrayal of the timeline of the Battle of Bull Run, it does include all of the historical elements, the strange, paradoxical historical elements at the time, including the crowd of civilians that showed up to watch the battle like it was going to be an entertainment. Um, because the North was convinced that once the Confederate Army was routed at Bull Run, that the war would be over, that the Confederates would come to their senses and no longer wish to secede from the Union, or even that the Union forces might be able to drive the Confederates all the way back to Richmond and take the new Confederate capital. Of course, that didn't happen. The Union suffered a rousing defeat at the Battle of Bull Run. They were very, very surprised at the drive, the fervor, and the organization of the Confederate forces. And the Union got their nose bloodied that day. And of course, the war went on for another 4 years. But there's a lot of fun had with the crowd of swells that show up to watch the battle, like it's a Sunday picnic event. As always, there's a lot of attention paid to period detail, uniform, equipment, everything else. For a series that's primarily a comedy series, there's a lot of attention paid to historical detail. And another thing I have to add is, the Civil War is obviously the darkest period in American history because it was, the nation divided. It's our bloodiest war, even to date. Um, Nearly 750,000 Americans died in this conflict. And so it's kind of grim. So, how do you set a comedy series around that? The creators deftly deal with the fact that there's loss and suffering, um, but they don't dwell on it. So they acknowledge it. This war is not fun and games, and there is danger. There are stakes. There are things at risk. But they definitely it's like a an old Bob Hope or Red Skelton movie. You know, they sort of like use the danger to create a frisson of tension that supplies the comedy with some grist. And I think they've never really told a story of a set piece battle, a real set piece battle. And I think they chose Bull Run because there are some ludicrous elements in that battle. You know, the civilians showing up, the Union being all full of themselves, thinking that this was going to be an easy win. And Bull Run is not one of the bloodier battles. I mean, you certainly wouldn't want to read a comedy about, you know, Antietam or Shiloh or the Crater. So, but as I said, there's a painstaking attention. If you're like a Civil War geek, there's lots of eye candy here because uniforms, equipment, everything else is presented accurately. And of course, you've got Chesterfield and Blutch. They're sort of the Laurel and Hardy here, and they're a contentious pair, always drawn together or pulled apart. It's kind of a bromance, and they're always funny and always good. And as I said, the translations are excellent. Sometimes the translations on this European stuff aren't excellent. They're either extremely dull or the translator tries to be clever by using current colloquialisms, which of course are out of date 5 years later. But here they do a really good job of keeping the dialogue in period and yet translating it to the colloquial English of the time. And highly recommended. The Blue Coats, any one of these is just a total blast. Now, the other thing I was reading was this Old Man from U.N.C.L.E. paperback from 1965. And Chuck, why are you reading that? This book has kind of a history with me. Way back when this book first came out, I bought it. And I was like 10 or 11 years old. And I bought it because I was a big Man from U.N.C.L.E. fan. I really wanted to read this book. And I carried it around with me everywhere for like a year. And the problem was it was a bit above my reading level. Not really above my reading level, because I was reading at a like a high school level, even in elementary school. I've always been an avid reader, but the writer uses references and tongue-in-cheek humor and stuff. I just wasn't getting it. And so it was a slog for me. It was like reading Dostoevsky as an adult. It's like, yeah, I really gotta. And I just eventually just stopped carrying it around with me. I think I read the first 2 chapters, and reading it, I realized, yes, I read the first 2 chapters. The rest was all new to me. Now, I was a big Man from U.N.C.L.E. fan. Man from U.N.C.L.E., for those of you who don't know, was an NBC series that ran for a number of years. Had a spinoff, The Girl from U.N.C.L.E., and it was all during the 60s spy craze, during Bond mania, when James Bond took over the imagination. So it seemed like every kid in America. And I really liked U.N.C.L.E. I thought Napoleon Solo and Ilya Kuryakin were like the coolest guys in the world. And I had all kinds of stuff. I had the Man from U.N.C.L.E. gun set. I had the Man from U.N.C.L.E. Aurora models that I put together and painted. These are by somebody else. I'm sure I didn't do as good a job as this. I had the Man from U.N.C.L.E. toy figures that you could pick up at the 5 and dime. Boy, am I aging myself. I think these were like 10 cents a piece at the 5 and dime. They had bins full of them. So I had I still have a set of these on the shelves in my office today. I really wanted the Man from U.N.C.L.E. lunchbox, which those of you with a keen eye will realize the artwork here is by Jack Davis. But I didn't get one when I was a kid, though I have one now as an adult. And of course, I bought the Man from U.N.C.L.E. complete DVD series in the special steel briefcase. Had to have it. Well, the thing is, you're saying, Chuck, but okay, you're a big U.N.C.L.E. fan. You've established that. What's the novel like? Surprisingly good. It's written by Michael Avallone, who, to say Michael Avallone was a prolific paperback writer is like saying water is wet. This guy wrote hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of paperback novels. And this one's good. And what's interesting about it for a fan of the U.N.C.L.E. series is that he was probably writing it based off of very little material. He obviously had the show Bible, and he obviously, because of the voices that he gives the characters, he obviously saw a few episodes. Maybe he saw the pilot episode or whatever, because the paperback comes out shortly after the series was launched. So it rings true to the Uncle series. He has the same tongue-in-cheek humor, although the first season of Uncle was a little bit more serious than the later seasons was veered toward parody. There's still this tongue-in-cheek humor, this sort of wink to the audience that we know this is all kind of silly, but we're all having fun together, and with the ridiculous and the Napoleon solo. Who's named Napoleon Solo? And the show always had this kind of elitist, snotty feel to it. I mean, certainly put across by Robert Vaughn with his, New York private school accent. And he was kind of a more fast-talking William F. Buckley, I always thought. But the story's good. It's engaging. Avalon was an excellent writer. There was a reason why he wrote so many paperbacks. And the coolest thing about it is it gives background on Uncle that I don't think was ever brought out on the show, including an excellent chapter in which Mr. Waverly, the head of Uncle, is visited by the President of the United States in a private meeting. And the President of the United States basically lays out the dangers that the criminal organization Thrush present to the world. And Thrush was Uncle's arch nemesis organization. They were always battling Thrush, like James Bond was always battling Smersh, or Spectre. And it's a really great speech the president gives, laying out Thrush's aims and their tactics and their place in the world. And it very, very much is like it's prescient about terror states and what terrorist organizations do, and in current day, and it's really well done. And like I said, he manages to capture the voices of all the main characters, and the story moves along at a rapid clip. It's about a chemical warfare agent. It's called the story is called the Thousand Coffins Affair, and there's all the usual teehee sexual playing about and violence, casual violence, all the kind of stuff you want to read in a 60s spy story. So if you can find these, I highly recommend them. And these are cheap if you find them on eBay or whatever, because as someone informed me recently, these things sold in the millions. In fact, the second one I've bought and I intend to read because it's written by a master paperback novelist, Harry Whittington. And it was explained to me that Whittington never wrote another one because he wanted to share the sales, and they wouldn't give them to him. They would just give him his standard paperback writing fee and say, well, I'm not writing another one of these because the last one I wrote for you sold 2 million copies. I want and even at 50 cents, I should have gotten a piece of that. Never understand why publishers are reticent to play royalties. It's just a little bitty slice of their profits. It doesn't take anything from their bottom line. Anyway, that said, if you can find these, they're cheap. I mean, you can find these books. I mean, this 60-year-old paperback you can sometimes find for $4 or $5 on eBay. I bought my copy I think for $4 from a private collector. So that's it. After all these years, I finally got to read that Man from U.N.C.L.E. novel that I carried around, back and forth to school and on field trips for almost a year. So that's it for me this week. I'll be back again, another episode of Ask Chuck Dixon next week, and I'll be back again with another What You Reading once I read some more stuff. So that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Thanks for